Hi, what's your name?
My name is Micah Cox.
And how old are you?
I'm 33.
Are you currently homeless?
Yes.
And how did you become homeless?
A combination of lack of planning, drug use and abuse, and love. You know.
How was your childhood?
It was good and bad. You know, I was kind of ignorant to a lot of the bad that was going on until later in life. You know, I accepted things as not that big of a deal that were probably a big deal. I didn't know any different, you know. I grew up in Alabama and then transplanted, moved around my whole life, so it's kind of hard to judge. It was okay. My brother killed himself when I was 9 years old, and I found him. So after that, it was kind of like childhood was over.
I'm so sorry to hear that.
It's life. Life comes and goes, you know.
Was he older than you or the same age?
He was 12. So I was 9, 3 years.
And do you think that tremendously affected you?
Yes. I mean, after that, there's a lot of memory lapse. You know, I guess there's a lot of things I repressed or whatever. But the overall effect was I was really introspective. I wasn't allowed to be, for lack of a better term, I wasn't allowed to show any kind of aggressive attitudes or, you know, things like that, because I had to defend myself when he killed himself and like went through interrogations and all kinds of shit. Excuse my language. Because of they suspected foul play, so all of a sudden I wasn't allowed to express my emotions, you know, without being looked at in a terrible way. You know.
How did your parents feel about that?
No, they were the ones that were repressing a lot of the emotional. Like, you know, I wasn't allowed to be mad. I wasn't allowed to even be sad. You know, I was treated with anger instead of remorse. You know, like for whatever reason, I was the only one home besides Lawrence, and they felt like I had something to do with it, or you know, looking back, I think they were just trying to find a source to put the guilt on, because they didn't want to admit that their son had killed himself. Upset at things. I had to just kind of hold all that in, and that's why I started smoking weed and hanging out with people that are probably not society's best choice when it comes to friends.
How old were you when you started to smoke weed?
13 years old. Same age, started smoking meth. You know, I found them both in my parents' room, unfortunately. You know.
Were your parents big on drugs?
Not big on drugs. You know, they were weekend warriors. You know, we always had what we needed. You know, it's not like we did without, but they partied hard when they did party. It was rock and roll. You know.
Did your parents know that you were stealing their stash or doing drugs?
Well, yeah. I mean, it was the elephant in the room. They wouldn't ask me or approach me directly about it because they didn't want to admit that they were using themselves. So it turned into this dance where, you know, like I would take just a little bit, and if it ever got to be too much, then it would just cause chaos in the house. But they never would, you know, like accuse me of stealing their shit or stuff, because they didn't want to have that conversation, you know. So I took advantage of it, I guess.
So after doing those drugs, did you introduce them to your friends, or did you just do them by yourself?
Yeah, I guess, you know, I did introduce, because we moved around a lot, you know, after we moved from Arizona, and I came to Eureka, Humboldt County. You know, I started telling them about this stuff called meth, and they were, you know, all my friends up there were like, yeah, we've heard about it, but we've never done it. And I was just an ass, you know, stupid kid, right? Like, yeah, well, you gotta try this stuff, right? Yeah. Next thing you know, we were all spun out. Oops.
So between moving schools, did you ever finish high school or did you end up dropping out?
I never finished high school. Until I went to prison. I got a GED. You know, music has always been important to me, but it's not something you can really get by with unless you're in a big city. You know, so being in Merced, I taught lessons, and you know, I grew marijuana and lived with my girlfriend at the time, and it wasn't really lucrative, but we made it by. And then just kind of settled and kept settling, you know. Instead of going and doing shows, I produced music in the garage, and then, you know, I wasn't really making money with it, but it was something to do, and it kept me going on. And then when our relationship broke up, you know, I started self-medicating all the time and hanging out with negative influences, and then one thing led to another, you know, and just ended up living in my car. Then I went to prison for assault with a deadly, assault with force likely, neither of which I did, but, you know, I mean, I guess it helped clean me up to an extent. That was it.
How did prison clean you up?
Well, I have an interesting thing they call institutional remission. When I find myself incarcerated, all of a sudden the urge to use is just gone. There's no point in using, because it's only gonna, it just seems to make my mental episode worse, you know? Being inside and can't go outside, can't get away from people, and just feel, it's just a terrible feeling being high inside of custody. Yeah.
Were you withdrawing in prison?
No. By the time I got to prison, I had been down for a while, so I was in pretty good shape. And I got really lucky. No 115s or write-ups, no big incidents. It was, I got really lucky in prison.
How long were you in prison?
So a year after. So 2 on one case, 2 years, and 1 on the other. And a majority of it I got credits for being on probation for. So they originally put me on probation. I got 6 violations, and then they put me in prison because of 6 violation, which, by the way, check your terms and conditions and know them. It's no one else's responsibility but yours.
So once you had gotten out of prison, did you start doing drugs again?
Yeah. I hadn't even left the bus station in Blythe, California, before I'd already gotten a bottle of Jack Daniels, and as soon as we hit LA, I bought a 20 sack. I just looked around the crowd. That guy, I know he's got something. There you go. You know, I mean, it was right away. And I know that people look down on that, but I wasn't necessarily trying to change my life. I was trying to get housing. And I guess that's my way of mollifying the situation, which is drugs never make anything better, but they make things bearable. If you know, you can read a whole bunch of books on different philosophies, but...
Were you successful in getting housing once you had gotten out of prison?
Yes and no. I had gotten several jobs working for Marcos Renteria and Foster Farms and QSI. And living in a sober living house was the option, you know, but I got sick of paying $500 a month to share a room with people and then have to pee in a cup all the time on top of it. Was just like, you know, so I eventually lost it because I was getting high, and I started living in my car because I refused to quit work. They wanted me to, you know, quit my job and go back to a program. I'm like, I just need a place, you know, I'll get my place on my own. So I did that for as long as I could, and then I went back to jail, and then BI, the program they do in there, I went through that, and this guy Sargees comes through, and he says, you know, we'll get you housing if you go to New Directions. So I plugged in with them and tried that for a year. You just sit there and wait and keep checking in for like a year, and I don't have any hope for getting a place. I'm still trying, but it seems exhausted for me, For other people, maybe not so much. You know, it's a good thought. You know, it's a good at least there's some resource connection, right? Some communities don't even have that. You know.
Do you think that these resources are more helpful or less helpful for the people trying to get help?
They're both. It's a double-edged sword. So as much as it helps, it hurts. It leaves it. It's ripe for abuse. It's easy to be targeted and victimized in that kind of a monopoly situation.
And you are currently living in Merced, California, correct?
I am. Well, yeah.
And how long have you been homeless?
7 years. The only breaks in between would be prison, program, and jail.
And on the street, are you using any drugs?
Well, I want to be funny and say, well, what do you got, right? But yeah, of course. I consider it like habits over habitats, right? Your habitat forms a large portion of your habits. What I do on a daily basis is based off of what I'm surrounded by and what resources I have available. So it's not saying that I can't stop using. It's just, you know, you're in a haircut or a barbershop, you're going to get a haircut every now and then. It's not necessarily a priority, but when it comes around, I take it. When it doesn't, I don't trip. Yeah.
What kind of drugs are you using now?
I like marijuana, alcohol, methamphetamines. I'd like to be more of a hippie and try and find my soul with hallucinogens, but for the most part, just meth. You know, I think crystal meth took over the world, and it's just kind of like one of those things where it's if you haven't done it, don't do it. It's a disease. It's terrible. Once you do it one time, it affects everything else. And it's a powerful thing because it makes you feel like you're in control. But you feel like that, right? But you're really just making a lot of noise and really not getting anything done. You're a rocking chair. I'm moving all the time, but I ain't going nowhere.
Do you feel like you have an addictive personality?
Yeah. Once you get a taste of me, no, you can't stop, right? I used to call myself Bad Habit with 2 D's, right? No, it's definitely I like to feel better. I like to change my emotional mind state, but it was mindfulness that set me free from my addictive personality. By being able to change how I feel by just concentrating on my perception, that kind of opened the door, and I stopped blackout drinking, for example. I might drink, you might see me with a beer, but I don't get blackout drunk anymore. I use when it's around, but I don't chase it anymore. If anybody that knows me from like 2015, I was bad, you know. I was boosting all the time, IDGAF, and now I'm humble. I'm not trying to have a clean white T-shirt on or have nice stuff, you know. I'm okay with being a little bit dirty and unshaven because I'm not trying to impress anybody anymore. And it was all from meditation and realizing I can get that same control over my mind state if I just concentrate on perceiving what's happening here. It releases a lot of that ego. I think the biggest problem with addicts is ego. It's got to be about me and my vanity, you know.
And how does crystal meth make you feel?
Like you're flying to the moon playing guitar while you're no.
How does the withdrawal make you feel?
Depressed. You know, it's definitely a downer, man. Like it's a real downer, dog. If for people that haven't used crystal meth, all right, it's all right, imagine the best day of your life, right? And that emotional feeling you got, like say you're in Disneyland, oh man, let's do this, let's do that, and you're just, you know, imagine having that, but like, you know, and you can have it whenever you want, and all of a sudden you don't feel normal without it, because you're like, I want to feel like that again. oh man, that stuff I came up with was great. I was so funny. And then when you don't have it, you get all depressed because you're like, oh man, that stuff wasn't that funny. Oh man, I just made a fool of myself. What was I thinking? Oh man, now I have to use so I feel better about myself because I made a fool of myself when I was high. Now I'm about to make a fool of myself by getting high again. And then, I mean, just cycle through that forever. And that's what you get with addiction and crystal meth. It's this constant bargain of shame versus joy, or pain and pleasure, you know. Because I did something I enjoy, now I'm ashamed and I feel guilt, or I destroyed this relationship, and so you keep chasing and embracing these. So just sit still and be okay. But no, you like, I want to go after happiness and run from pain instead of feeling everything. That's the only thing that's going to be able to fix me is the idea of accepting the pain and not chasing after my happiness. And it makes me very lazy looking or complacent. Like, why doesn't he give up? But it's to hold on to myself, I had to let go of everything else, you know. And to be functional in society after that is, I'm not going to be normal, you know. I had a lot of head injuries. I was ejected from a car crash in 2016 on the highway, no seatbelt. A lot of memory problems after that, but just the drugs, you know. I have a lot of physical damage to my brain, problematic, you know. It makes it hard for me to function, and I get moments of like, I'll be totally normal, and people are like, oh, that guy is, you know, who are you? And, you know, it's like I meet my potential, and then you get moments where I'm just kind of like, I can't talk right now, and I don't know what's going on, and then I'm kind of foggy, and so people think it's drugs when it's probably a little bit it's symptomatic. Yeah, neurosymptomatic. Wow, smart. Yeah.
So if you were to be taken out of this environment and out of these encampments, do you think that you would have a chance of getting clean and sober and living a normal life?
As long as I was able to define what that was, yeah. You know, I don't think I'll ever be 100% clean or 100% sober. I don't think it's impossible, but I don't like the idea of forever. I don't like, you know, an eternal mindset on anything. Times change and we have to change with them. So I just say that because I don't want someone to say like, oh, I saw that video, you said you were going to stay clean if you got a place, and now look at you. I'd have a better chance there than I would here. I'd have a lot better chance in a stable environment than I would here. And I know I can work. I mean, I've only been fired one time in my entire life, and that was just because, you know, I had worked at Dublin. I mouthed off to the chef. But what I'm trying to say is, I work hard. I can work. You know, even though I'm broken, I know how to work, and I take pleasure in it. So I know I could sustain myself if I could get in that place. But if you want me to work in this environment and not have anywhere to shower or have a sense of security, like, you know, okay, I went to work and all my stuff's missing again, and I don't have any food because I don't have anywhere to put it, and my EBT's running short. I haven't even got my first check. Now I gotta buy new clothes, go wash this stuff, try and figure out somewhere to sleep. It's just impossible. I mean, it's possible if you just set it up right, and I could do it if I had a place, but if I never have a place, I'll never get a place. It's a twisted situation where people are overlooked and underestimated because of their environment. Their habitat keeps their habits in the same cycle, and you know, I mean, it's the Jews have a story of traveling through the wilderness for 40 years, and never finding their promised land. And that wilderness is out here still, and it's a mindset, and a large portion of it comes from society that has, so you have a place and you've never been homeless, and you look on the outside in of homelessness, and you're going to see like, well, all they have to do is stop doing this and this, but you don't see a lot of the problems they do. So it's a miscommunication. It's like, I call it first world problems to a third world refugee. You complain about not having, your order was messed up at McDonald's. I'm eating out of the trash. You complain about, the way the water tastes. I drink out of the trash. There's a lot of anger over here, and there's a lot of arrogance over here, and so that keeps that ghetto alive. That's why they call it a ghetto. It's the ghetto of the mind. We're stuck because one side's hurt or feels discriminated against, and the other side feels like these people are lazy and don't want help, or complacent, or they bring their own problems onto themselves. And while both sides are true, yeah.
What do you think would help you the most right now?
Oh man, I just thought of I try and be a funny guy all the time, right? And that doesn't help, because then people dismiss you. What would help me the most right now is to be taken seriously, and to be given it like a broom closet. Give me a broom closet and a shower. That, you were asking me, if I had a chance to have that, what would I, could I keep it? I'd say yes. But being homeless, here's what the outsiders don't see. They don't see the lack of sense of security. All right, so you go to sleep, you put your phone beside you on your nightstand or wherever you live at, right? Or you fall asleep with it wherever. You wake up, you expect your phone to be there. It's not gonna go missing, right? Well, out here, if you go to sleep, even to check, just, wash your eyes real quick. You're not even tired, leaned up, you wouldn't believe how crafty people can be. I've been taken advantage of in very violating ways by falling asleep and being sedated with, a glass pipe with rubber hoses. I don't want to teach people how to do this shit. I'm just saying, I figured out how they do the stuff, and you wouldn't believe it. I don't want to scare anybody or make them feel like the world's over or anything, but yeah, out here it gets rough. So a sense of security is the main thing I don't have. I don't have any kind of idea of how to get that back without having a door to lock. If you wanted to follow me all around all day and mess with me, I'd have no way to lock you out of my life. I can't close the door on you. You can follow me around and throw rocks, and even if the cops see you, I'll be the one that gets stopped instantly. I did something. I must have thrown a rock or whatever. Because why would someone in a nice car just do that, right? But
do you have any kids?
No, thank God. I was responsible in that area. It's not for lack of trying. I'm just, I guess, lucky and very shy. It's not like I get along with many people. So yeah, it kind of shuts everything down there.
And do you still keep in contact with any of your family?
My mom, I talk to her every now and then, and she filters everything out, so I don't know what's going on with her.
Does she know that you're out here homeless?
No, please don't tell her. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm just being sarcastic. Yeah, but she's got her own issues, She's getting older, and we don't get along all the time, and I'm irritating just on this interview alone. If you could imagine staying with me, it'd be like, right? So I don't blame her for it. We're both broken people, and we don't work well together. So me living with her would bring her out on the streets or something, So I just rather not even attempted at this point, because at least she's able to function and my little brothers are okay. So I'd rather stay away so I don't mess their life up. You know, a lot of my isolation is out of protection and love. I don't go around friends I went to college with, because I mean, this stuff might be contagious. You know, all of a sudden you'll just be sitting there, hey man, you know, before I do this presentation, let me go get drunk. You know, that's not a good idea. It's not, you know, I mean, it's not that bad, but sarcastic humor is always a good way to point out the truth. That obviously what I'm doing isn't working, and I don't want to bring anyone else down with me. So I isolate. You know, if you're out here in this life, then I hang with you. But if you're not, you're in front of, why doesn't he ever come by, or why does he pass by my house and never knock? Because this stuff might be contagious. God forbid you catch it. It sucks.
What would you say to these younger generations thinking about going into the street life?
Well, if you're thinking about going into the street life, all right, number one, if you weren't born into it, you're not part of it. I say that esoterically and strictly for those that think they're going to be some hardcore criminal thug guy. Look, most crime that's organized was organized as a family thing. And unless you're a part of that family, born into it, you'll never really be part of it. Your best bet is to marry into it, but even then, that's just a facade, man. It's a dream. It's stuff that I shouldn't know, but I do know. And if I'm risking my life to say anything, then it's this. You're not part of it. Even if they convince you you're part of it, this crime life, I'm not talking about gang affiliated on either side. I'm saying every side. It's a bloodline thing, bro, and you're just gonna go down for someone else's time. I mean, yeah, you'll get a lot of love and respect, but you'll be in prison for the rest of your life. So the rap idea of being a thug and a hardcore criminal and stuff, look, it is organized crime. It's a family thing, and unless you're born into it, you're not part of it. Then I'm sorry, but if you're thinking about going into the street life, or if you're about to lose your place and you're scared, if you are, for whatever reason, realizing that you are about to live on the streets, the number one thing to do is learn how to say no. It's okay to say no. And I consider a person that says no more courageous and worthy of my respect than someone that ignores me. But if you have trouble saying no and you want to come out on the streets, look, I want everything you got and I want some more of it. And I want your money and I want to see, can I get a bite of your soup? And Gimmy's over here with Jimmy and we're trying to get in your pockets, because it's a messed up truth that nobody really wants to tell you, but I'm telling you the truth.
And what would you say to any of your family members that were able to view this video?
I apologize for being honest. I apologize that you see me as the villain, but I encourage it, because at least then, you know, you have something to look at and visualize all of the problems. You know, I'll be that guy. But more than anything, if you didn't hear anything else, I love you, and I'll never stop loving you. That's why I don't come around. It's because I love you.
Thank you so much for talking to me today.
You're welcome.